I figured you must have beaten the Cobras. If you are questioning why there is a priest up the front taking this service in the Ngatea Rugby Club, it's because Keith didn't play by the rules. So why change now? I want to begin by acknowledging you, Mum. We cannot begin to understand the hugeness of this day for you, not only in the loss of Keith, but in the heaviness of the loss that you have endured. And so we honour you today. To you, Bevan and Peter, to Michelle, Tanya and Hamish, the family and the extended family. We really need to keep this as informal as possible. For that reason, I'm just going to give you instructions and move out of the way. We simply have 6 designated speakers, and then there's a chance, if you would like to speak, I can bring a microphone to you so you don't have to get out of your seat. We are here in the Ngatea Rugby Club, therefore you don't need to tell the truth. Following this service, I will be in the foyer for confessional. One more notice on behalf of the family: if you've lost a trailer or a tractor or any other utensil, please go and see Martin after the service. It's probably at his house. I'm going to invite the children to come now, and they're going to begin this time together as you consider maybe what you would like to say and do, as we simply take time to honour a good man. Now this drink, by the way, is for him, not for me. And so even in death, a life continues through all of us. So thank you for being here for the family. Thank you for being here because of your love for Keith. I'm going to call on Michelle to come and begin this time together.
Firstly, thank you everyone for your support. It's wonderful. I think the best thing about getting older is the reminder of the collection of friends, amazing people who you have around you in your life. So grateful that the borders have opened and allowed Hamish and Tanya, my twin brother and sister, to come. Hamish come up from Nelson. He tried yesterday in that shocking weather, and got here this morning, and Tans came in the early hours from Brisbane. I would like to share a little road trip that Dad and I did together. We did a few, and we always had a really nice time. And this one, I bought a new car off Trademan. It was down in Ngatea. And got the bang bang on the door really early in the morning. And when I got to the kitchen, Dad had a thermos of tea, and he'd made sandwiches, and it was all in a chilli bag, and he was ready to go. So I think he drove the first part, and we got from Taupo, heading towards Ngatea along that road. There's an old hotel, which I can't remember the name of, Rangatai, that's it. Big car park on the side. We got there anyway and it was closed down, but there was still the old traditional picnic tables out the front. And it was quite a nice winter's day, so we set up with our thermos of tea and had a sandwich, and next thing this wild pig just arrived, and it was quite tame. And then next thing a sheep arrived, and the sheep was really confident, and it was throwing its head around, and I got really scared, so I sat on the table, put my feet on the seat, and this thing was, Dad would throw it across to get it away from us a little bit. And I think this was like the early 2000s, because I still had a camera in the car instead of a smartphone. And I decided to run back to the car and grab the camera and take a bit of footage, a few photos of it. Anyway, as we drank our tea, this animal just got really quite frightening. And it was bunting, like Dad was just still sitting on the picnic table, and it would bunt him, and it was a fully grown thing. Anyway, so then we decided it was way too confident, and he would distract it, and I would run for the car, and then I would bring the car as close as possible, which I did. But when Dad was trying to make a run for it, it just came and it just took his legs out, and I was recording, and I felt guilty because he just did that in the front garden as terrorist, and he landed down this retaining wall, which gave him then a little bit of time to get to the car. And then this sheep, the pig, was not interested. But then even as we were driving out, the pig was just ramming, doing panel damage to my front wheel, all around the wheel. It was incredible. So we had a bit of a laugh about that, and I don't think Dad quite has walked the same since. And he drove a nice new car home, and I think we sold it for peanuts because this sheep had just smashed it. Well, thanks again for all being here. It's quite incredible. When I was asked about numbers for catering and for the service sheets, I had no idea. But wow, you're an amazing group. Thanks for the support. Tammy.
Hi everybody. For those of you who don't know me, or haven't already recognised me and put a connection, I'm Keith's son. This is my lovely twin sister Tanya. I'd like to start, we've seen a lot of us have a drink down here. Cheers to Keith.
Cheers, man.
Keith didn't even know about Tanya and I until one day in the mid-90s when an unexpected phone call revealed that twins were born on the 1st of July 1974. A few years later, in 2001, Tanya started the search for who and where we come from. Finally making contact with Keith by phone in 2004. Followed by a long-awaited meeting with Keith and some of the family on Anzac Day weekend of 2005. This eagerly anticipated reunion was filled with lots of smiles and laughter and some not-so-light refreshments. I was not so comfortable with change, and sadly robbed myself of a few good years. I didn't meet Keith until 2008. This relationship slowly grew and grew, and until a somewhat unconventional but workable family relationship for us all. As the years have gone by, there's been comments like, "Holy shit boy, you sound just like your father." Or, "Those are the sort of tricks that Keith used to play." Or, "I'm not sure why people would say this one, but does your silver tongue also get you in trouble like your old man did?" I'm told that most of a person's makeup comes from their parents. The ratio of around 25% learned and 75% inherited. Maybe this will explain why we hit it off so well. I'm sure Tans fits this category, and while I'm at it, I'll throw Shelley under the bus also. Most of us would say generous to a fault. Some of us might say stubborn. Keith would prefer to say very determined. Most of us would say he would almost help anyone that was in need without question. Some of us might say, not willing to make change. Keith would prefer to say, firmly fixed on the final outcome. And finally, most would definitely say, Keith would happy to listen to your troubles, worries, whatever your opinions may be. However, you better be prepared to get Keith's advice or opinions in return. Keith and I shared so many interests, from the love of the great outdoors, hunting and fishing, the game of rugby where we both played and coached and managed teams. My current still am a volunteer, and we both were members of the Volunteer Fire Service, just to name a few. Over the last year, while he was staying in Palanui, we spoke almost every week, on the phone. Sometimes for quite a while. He wanted to know the news. He always asked after our three boys, how their footy was going, or if I had any more hunting stories to tell. He spoke of them finding a small cottage, as he was very keen to come and live with us down in Murchison, so he could be closer to the boys and go and watch them play footy, and maybe watch them ride their motorbikes. We spoke of them taking them to the lakes, teaching them to go fishing. We spoke of Keith getting a comfortable camper so he could travel to places that he really wanted to see, and about the people he was going to meet. Even though it seemed such a short time, Keith and I had managed to fit in some very quality father-son activities and experiences. He joined me on a couple of deer missions in Murchison, and there'd been a few opening mornings in Pukaroa Pond or the Iaka River. Keith was apparently in a panic all week. The boy was coming from the south to shoot some ducks. Everything had to be perfect. It was the flashiest mai you've ever seen. There were comfy seats, there were fancy gun racks, there was a full view of the pond, with 2 strings of decoys on the water, and there was flapping decoys at each end of the pond, and the camouflage was outstanding. There was a full outdoor kitchen, bacon, eggs, hash brown sausages with all the trimmings. It even had a hand basin with running water. The guns were loaded. The tart taste of a sneaky caught on our lips. This was going to be the best open day ever. We had everything we could possibly need, except for one very important thing. Thanks to some trigger-happy jaffers about 200 yards up the river, no bloody ducks. Keith came and stayed with us in Murchison. He had heard through the grapevine that the house renovation I was doing for Jodie and I needed a foreman to keep the job moving. Over that month or so, if I'm honest, I'm not sure that was the case. There was Valentine swings constructed in the trees, and there was jungle gyms constructed out of recycled timber and plumbing pipes. There was plenty of finger pointing and even more. I think you missed that one, boy. While fishing on Aaron's boat, bounty hunter Keith joined forces with my young son Cole, and together I think they may have caught the most species in one day, including leaping from his chair saving Cole from being dragged over the rail by a double header of 2 monster snappers at the same time. Fastest I've ever seen Keith move. These times have now become very significant and very special memories, as we won't have these times ever again. I'd just like to take this chance to mention here, in front of me here, is a Ngatea box which I built for Keith. I would like or Keith would like, he mentioned this to me one time, for everybody to please sign that box. That Ngatea came out of my house when we did the renovation, and it was actually recycled by Keith himself, which I think makes it a bit more special. And in true Keith fashion, I've put it together with number 8 wire and bowling twine. So please come and sign that when you get a chance. He once told me public speaking was never his forte. However, at my wedding to my lovely wife Jodie, he still managed to find the courage, and with a tear in his eye, a tremble in his voice, and his heart on his sleeve for the world to see, he thanked our mother Gloria for raising two such wonderful people and getting us to adulthood without too many scars. This meant the world to Mum. The next day, Keith and Robin took Mum for a drive to see the sights, and ended up having fish and chips on the beach, probably telling stories that shouldn't have been told, and having a great time. That was Keith in a nutshell. Without knowing it, he made my mum feel very special and gained yet another lifelong friend. For Tans and I, Keith welcomed us and our families into his world, no questions asked, and with open arms. He always made the biggest effort to be there for us. Sorry, boss. And we loved you very much and appreciated you for that. I never got to say goodbye. And you broke my heart, yo, bugger. I love you. Till we meet again.
I'm going to speak on behalf of Keith's grandchildren. He had 7 beautiful grandsons from Hamish and I, ranging from 13 to 8. These are just some words that the kids have put together. Granddad Keith, he always built new things to play with. He made sure it was safe to play on and always taught us how to play new games. From Cole, who's 8. To Granddad Keith, he was so much fun. I wish he still lived. He helped Cole and I catch 2 big fish. He always played with us. He was so much fun. From Jackson, who's 8. Papa Keith taught me to drive. That's from Josh, who's 13. He was 5 at the time and lives in the city. This was a big deal. I wish Papa Keith was still here so he could see us all play rugby. I think he'd be proud of us. That was Ollie, who's 12, so Keith never got to see my boys play. Noah, who's 10, said, we love staying at the farmhouse, collecting eggs, playing in the long grass and not worrying about snakes, because we live in Australia. And Flinny, who's also 10, said Papa Keith wore funny hats. Oh. For Granddad Keith, I remember when he made a swing in our backyard. We had lots of fun on it. When we stayed at his house, he only had the Yuck gluten-free wheat bix, so we had to have that one. From Leighton, who's 10. Thanks, everybody.
Michelle, Tanya and Hamish, we acknowledge and honour your loss, but at the same time, we here also give thanks that you allowed us to have had in this place today a chance for us also not to share around you and support you, but also to acknowledge him ourselves in person. We're going to hear from Ellen, Cliff, and then Joanna on behalf of Mum Robin, and then there'll be a chance if you would like to come and share. Thanks, my sister. Are you here, Ellen?
Hi everyone. friends call me Moses, been called other names. I first met Keith in London in 1976. Believe it or not, I was working at a bar, and that's where I met Keith. He had a girlfriend at the time, Heather Nedra. Brother's here today. And Keith was one of those sort of characters, as most of you know. He could draw people into him. He was a people magnet. And in this pub, within a week, he knew everybody and everybody knew him. And it didn't matter where you went with Keith, he just drew people into himself. He was great to just sit back and watch. And I worked there for a while, then I quit and we went up to Scotland for a holiday over New Year's, Christmas. And we came back. We lived in a flat, or a house actually, 48 Oakington there, I think it is that right? And it's great to see some of the old 48ers still here today. Logan and Jackie here. And, so it was a neat flat. Keith would go to the pub, come back, and he'd have 3 or 4 people behind him. Who the hell are these people? They didn't have a bed for the night. So Keith would just bring them all back. They'd sleep on the floors, on the couches, it didn't really matter. But that's how he sort of operated. He just made friends with anybody and everybody around him. It was amazing to watch. We did a trip to Pamplona, running with the Bulls, and we got to Dover, and we had a friend with us. And the 3 of us, we bought a bottle of Drambuie each. This was going to last the whole trip. It takes 30 minutes to get from from Dover to Cowley on the Hobbit Road. By the time we got to Cowley, those 3 bottles were gone. Keith would walk around, because we're on a bus tour, and he just went around and gave everybody a drink. By the time we got up there, he knew everybody, everybody knew him. When we got to the French officials, the customs officers, we couldn't understand a word they were saying, and they definitely couldn't understand a word we were saying. And but that was Keith. That's how he sort of operated. He was he just drew people in, and when you went out for a night with him, you didn't know what the hell was going to happen. It was normally a great night. We had a few train wrecks, but most of the nights were really great, you know. I've got dozens of stories, like everybody else here probably has. Most of those stories could only be told on fishing trips. But, yeah, it was, I gotta read this. He was best man at my wedding. We had a lot of contact in the last 40 odd years. We wouldn't see each other for ages, but as soon as I seen him, we just had that smile on our face. You just recognise he was like a brother to me. He was a great guy. So I could stand here for hours and talk, but I know we all could. So thank you, Foxy, for your friendship memories. Thank you.
How are you doing? What's happening? What do you know? Did you all recognise how those laconic inquiries into one's well-being were piece impeccably thought out conversation starters? Didn't matter if you hadn't laid eyes on them for years, weeks, or just yesterday. There was a saying to all and sundry. Personal, familiar, and agreeable. Keith would have rolled them out to people he caught up with at George Hodson's funeral, the last formal event he ever attended before the series of events that are created today. Keith has 6 first cousins, 5 ladies, 1 poor bloke, and they wish to acknowledge their relationships with Keith over the years. As some are unable to be here today, they have asked me to reflect on Keith's life. Why me? Then why not one of the family? After all, the ladies always seem to have a lot to say sometimes. A plausible reason is that I've known Keith for 60 years or more. And it started when Bruce and Heather bought their farm on Piako Road in Tura. I had struck up a friendship with Peter at primary school. And his farm, or his home, was at that time an exhausting 600 metres from our place. The permanency of my relationship with the Fox family was cemented when I entered the broader Fox family some 37 years ago. And in fact, we had the after event, post-event, right at this very building. There were periods of time when I didn't have a clue what Keith was up to, nor he me. And then I would see him frequently for an extended period. His relationship with his first six first cousins was similar, and they would all catch up at Fox family reunions, parties for Keith or his other people, parents, funerals even, and weddings. And that was the sort of where they all caught up. And of course he maintained a genuine interest in their lives. Individually, he would see them by chance or by design if he thought they could do something for them, get something done more easily. The opportunity for impromptu catch-up was not lost either. The embrace and tone warm and cordial. Keith enjoyed a phone call to his Uncle Noel, and when passing would drop in sometimes to catch up on the coffee. Keith was a caring man who could see that through his commitment to his parents as they became older. But he was a man who went his own way and seemed to not outwardly worry about his cousins when he was not in their company. Now, it was true, there was a lot of love in Keith's life. With each relationship came commitment, excitement and joy, but eventually loss and consequence. But in one case, another round of excitement came much longer after the loss, and we saw Hamish and Tanya just before. It became obvious to him that his family was suddenly larger than he had anticipated. Hamish and Tanya appeared and they invited Michelle, Robin and the extended family into their lives, and what a joy that has been to see them unfold. Most importantly, Keith did find permanency in love life. A sneaky look back at some photos of the Fox group included a very happy looking Keith and Robin at an event held 12 January 1985. So that's a relationship of nearly 38 years sustained. It's poignant that Keith's life ended at their shared home with Robin at his side. Excuse me while I turn the page. I didn't borrow that line from 660. My first memory of Keith is one of him being bent over looking under the bonnet of a green Mark I Zephyr. He and his mates were trying to establish how they could make this old keel go faster, even though it was designed not to. It was not a gentle Zephyr in Keith's hands. Keith had a love affair with cars for a large part of his life, and some of the models he owned include the famous Falcon GTHO, a Mini Clubman, and a Nissan Pulsar Triple S, were the ones that I can recall. The flasher and the faster the better. The second compelling memory from those early days was his unrelenting teasing of his younger brother Peter. Brotherly love was hard to sustain with that level of torture. and subsequent events have amplified the feelings. When Keith was young, his sense of devilment was already well established. Jane, his cousin, remembers as a single-digit age person from Whitianga over for a holiday on the Fox Farm in Hamilton Road, being with Keith, and I think Bevan, drinking beer from a bottle, broken top and all, and smoking inside the hay barn. She recalls it wasn't so funny when grandfather Keith Fox discovered their indiscretion. Rosemary also recalls a family trip in 1970 to see Keith and Bev and a newly arrived Michelle and Turangi. Keith was operating machinery for an Italian company working on the Tongariro power scheme. An enduring memory was the quality of the accommodation given to them, and Keith would have welcomed the global warming at some stages of those work years. The passion for machinery remained throughout his life and included periods as an agricultural contractor and supporting other contractors. Keith and Bruce McCullum were at the forefront of bringing chop-mined silage to the Hauraki Plains. People thought they were mad at the time. He also spent many months reducing land productivity by covering perfectly good topsoil with clay when he was creating hump and hollows across paddocks on the Hauraki Plains. He tried dairy farming for a while. His love of fishing, hunting, telling stories and laughing and crying over beer with his mates are well known. Even in earlier battle with ill health did not diminish his sense of humour or presence. His life was a colourful collision of events and experiences, people and relationships, opportunities and threats, sound decisions and misjudgments, all woven together to create a vibrant one-off tapestry. At 74, it all ended at 74 years young. 74 years is relatively short by today's standards. But the male foxes have a history of severe heart issues, so no surprise that this risk visited Keith. But was most likely one of the many risks he dismissed. He died on the anniversary of the grandmother Kit's passing 24 years prior. So when I was reading the notice advertising people of Keith's passing on through to the other side, I was taken with the compelling line in the notice carefully crafted by his family. 74 years of life lived your way. A very insightful and succinct assessment of his life. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joanna Robbins Illustrator. Mum has asked me to speak on your behalf today. If I can. Keith Fox, Foxy, Papa Keith, lived from 1948 to 2022, 74 years. And he spent the better part of 38 of those years with Mum and our family. I think that's pretty significant. Mum went on her first date with Keith to a fancy dress dance some 38 years ago. He quickly became part of her life, and Tracy, Hayley and mine. We moved to the farm on Piako Road the year that I turned 13. I remember this because I was really scared to get on that school bus and go to school. Up until then, I always walked to and from school, being Italian and all. Life on the farm was always busy. I remember Keith making hay, milking cows most of the time, Mum and I helping in the shed, Mum falling in the effluent pond, and being able to ride motorbikes around the paddock. We had a friendly bull named Herbie that loved to wee sip a beer over the fence, and an ex-racehorse who often got the better of us. One summer, not long after we moved to the farm, we went up to Waikawa Bay for a camping holiday. The hay all had to be done before we could go away, and I had a vague memory of myself and my sisters being on the back of the Land Rover on the way up to Waikawa Bay. But I thought, my memory's playing tricks on me like that couldn't have happened. But when I talked to Mum about this over the last couple of weeks, she confirmed that. In fact, we did ride up to Waikawa Bay on the back of the Land Rover. It was when my sisters and I were in our late teens that Mum and Keith separated for a while, and Mum and us girls moved back into her house in Ngatea. Keith kept in touch, and a few years later he moved back in with Mum. We three girls were mostly off doing our own thing by then. Mum sold the house in Ngatea and they purchased a block at Pukaroa and lived in JB's bus for a while. My oldest son Blake was born while I was living in the bus. Papa Keith loved spending time with Blake and took him for rides in the tractor when he was working on the block. During this time, Keith was also dealing with the diagnosis of Hodgkinson's, and Mum looked after him and made sure he got his appointments and treatments. They moved out of the bus and spent time in 3 rental properties while the house was moved onto the block and renovations were completed on it. Keith loves to sit on the deck and look at their block with the river just behind the house and the duck pond and Waimai down the back. He enjoyed taking my sisters and my kids, Blake and Paul, Ryan and Sarah, Kaya and Tanner, down to get eggs from the chooks, and loved getting them to ride the ride-on lawnmower around the lawn. And they in turn enjoyed being with Papa on the farm. Foxy always loved to entertain, and Mum quite often came home from work to a deck full of people and can you make us some scones, Robbie? Robbie was his affectionate name for Mum. He also loved to tease Mum about going out for coffee. She would go and visit one of her friends, and when she got home he would ask, "So, did you have coffee?" His love of rugby saw him involved in both Ngatea and Hauraki North rugby clubs, and come rugby season, if either team had a home game, that was where you would find him. They sold the block at Pukaroa and purchased the house in Ngatea in 2017. It was shortly after this move that Keith discovered a lump and was diagnosed with melanoma, which led to having most of his lymph nodes removed and some more nursing from Mum while he recovered. He loved sitting in the sun porch or in his chair and having Mum bring him his breakfast and many cups of tea. In Mum's words, he was a lovable rogue. Rest in peace, Keith.
Moses, Cliff, Joanna, thank you. Keith is up the front right now, but any other day he would never be up the front. So as we have an open floor, don't feel obliged. If you need to come to the front, I can bring the mic to you. As we consider the importance of tomorrow at North's Club, I want to begin by inviting Rowan McDuff to come and open this part of the open floor.
Better put a pair of glasses on too. I found out Robin came around to see me last week, or I think it was, and asked me if I'd say a few things, and I realise now why you get married, because our brains are buggered now, and wives never forget. So, and it doesn't matter whether it happened 10 years ago, if it was a bad thing, you're never going to let you forget it. I haven't done anything bad in my marriage, but I'd just like to say at this stage, we never ever, is this on or what? Can you hear me anyway? Yeah. We never ever called Foxy Keith, so I'll refer to him as Foxy. One thing you might not know, he died on one of his mates' birthdays, old Buck McCallum. And if he's up there with Buck now, I hope the bloody hell he took a packet of cigarettes up with him. Because old Bucky only smoked OPs. I saw Foxy at funeral a couple of weeks ago. Bloody hell, he was dressed to the T's. I've never seen him dressed like that. Usually his hair's all bloody scruffy, he's got old clothes on, and he's a mess. He's been like it all his life, so. But on that day, he was bloody flash as hell. And all of the old fellas wondered whether he had a new bird in his life or something. But anyway, he had to go home to Robin. No disrespect, Robin. Just really know me. I first met Foxy late 70s, and he was my manager for about 5 or 6 years. In 1986, we took over the secondary school team, Thames Valley Secondary School team here in the Valley. Foxy was the first, he was the manager, and all he had managed before was the odd Golden Oldies team, so all he had to do there was pull them up with booze and they were happy. But, in 1986 we had a big under-18 tournament out here that Brownie and Rex Holden were coaching, and I might add there were some hell of a good players in the team, and they got runner-up to North Harbour. They beat Auckland and a few others, and I had to, because when your memory goes, you've got to ring these young fellas, and Davey McCullum was, young buck was, he was down, come down with us to Wakatani, and I rang him up and I says, oh, can you remember what happened down there? And he says, no, geez, I can't. Ring Pixie up. Well, Pixie never played in 85, he played in 87, he played in 86. So I rang Pixie up and he had all the scores and everything written down. That's probably why he's a school teacher. And I said to young buck, I said, you're only bloody 52, 53, your memory's gone already. And he said, oh, I'll be all head knocks. But young buck played in the backs and he never got tackled anyway. Our first away trip was in 87. We were going to Wakatani. The bus pulled out here and all the kids. Foxy had got a guy by the name of, I forget his first name, but Cummings was the principal down here, and he was in charge of rugby in the Thames Valley for secondary school. So we went to, he got Cummings down to make a speech, and of course all he said to them was, you know, there's behave yourself and no drinking, no smoking, you know, all the things that young kids wanted to do, they weren't allowed to. So he laid the law down, and Foxy made a speech to say, you've heard what the principal said, obey his rules and we'll get on fine. And at the same time, old Buck was with us. Foxy put him in charge of picking the jerseys up because Foxy had done it for 1 year, and Buck was, Foxy didn't want to do it anymore, so anyway, so old Buck was assistant manager, sorry, and he come down and we get as far as the Coupe pub. This is early in the morning, and Foxy stopped the bus and out comes all this booze. And these are all 17, 18-year-old kids. We're putting all this booze on the bus, and I never got out because I was the coach and I was being sensible. And we drove. Anyway, we got to Wakatani, and they had us billeted out in them days, and we were sent to a marae out of Ruatoria, I think it was, and that's where they put nail the chairs to the floor and nail all the tables to the floor, put bars on the inside of the windows. And anyway, we were staying at this marae, and we pulled in with the bus, and here's 5 guys with patches on their back. I don't know whether a mongrel mob or black bear or something. And Big Buck, he went back to the back of the bus, and all the kids were hiding down. They didn't know where the hell we were, and Foxy gets out. Within 10 minutes, he had these big, and you don't see too many of those black bear and mongrel mob guys. They're not little guys for some reason, and I think when they recruit them, they only recruit the big fellas. Anyway, they were there, and within about 10 minutes, Foxy had them all laughing and carrying on, and it was probably the best day, ended up the best day that we'd had in the weeks, and we did it for 5-6 years, and those fellas really looked after us. And they looked after us more when they found out the bus was full of booze. But, and you're not meant to drink on a marae, so what Foxy and these guys did, you know the big teapots you get at, you know, they're about this bloody big. He filled that all up with booze, so that was only tea we were drinking on the marae. So I couldn't say anything about it, I couldn't tell Foxy off. But we used to, Foxy, we needed to raise money for these teams, and because a lot of the kids never had the money to buy boots and all the gear we had to go away, so Foxy suggested we go out shearing and just shoot. In them days, you know, back in '86, in the '80s, every crocky had half a dozen sheep running around, every dairy farmer had half a dozen, 8, 10 sheep running around, and I said, who's going to shear these? And he said, you will, because I was shearing at the time. So anyway, we shore these sheep and we'd sell the wool, and at that time, wool was at the top dollar and gas was bottom. You know, like completely different now, I know, but we were getting the same price per pound for our wool as what the petrol is now, and we made a lot of money. And kids we clothed the kids. Any kid that couldn't afford boots, we brought boots for them, and we did that for 5 or 6 years, as I say. And I don't know what else I've got here. We rounded, Foxy rang me up one day and said to me, I've got about 15 sheep out here on the farm, can you come out and shear them? And I said, yeah, no trouble. And I went out there to the farm, and Robin and the kids were out in the paddock, and we were all rounding them up, and because you know what, no dogs or anything, and the bloody sheep's broke. And they went past, and they actually went past between me and Foxy, and but because he didn't see the funny side of it. And Robin and the kids got a bloody barrel, and he turned around to me and he was going to barrel me, and I just was going like this, shaking my head, and he knew better than to barrel me, because I would have walked off. But we had to go back in a week's time and get them back in again. But I, you know, like Foxy was a good bastard. He had a heart of gold. He was had no boys or anything to follow around at rugby, but he did all this through the goodness of his heart. And I know he had his bad points. He was never ever going to win Thames Valley Farmer of the Year. But man, you know, he had a few things going wrong for him. Mostly his dress code. I don't know whether his brothers pinched all the good clothes and left him with the shabby ones or not. But, and just finishing, I know all you buggers are getting sick of people talking up here, but I want to thank the Fox family and Robin for doing what you're doing for Miles. He's puts his apology in because he had to go to hospital this morning to see a specialist, and he was going to come, but he couldn't put the thing off. So we really appreciate it. He's going through a hard time at the moment. So he's got the big game of rugby tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see most of us out there, but bring plenty of money because he needs it. So with that, I thank you very much, and righto, Foxy, you won't see me again until I get up there, but you can guarantee Rex Holden, Buck McCullum and Foxy, if there's a leaner up there, they'll be on it. And Buck McCullum will be asking him for a smoke. The trouble is, Rex will be too. Thank you.
I can't offer you a bus full of booze, but I can offer you a microphone. All now open.
Kia ora. I'm young Buck, for those who don't know me. I thought I'd better come up. Foxy got up at dance funeral, so I'll come up here and say something about his. Yeah, known Foxy my whole life from the Fox family, just up the road, Garga Road. And we used to see, Foxy all the time. It was quite funny because you'd either see shitloads of him or you'd never see him at all. And he was just one of those guys. He'd turn up every day for about 2 months, and then he'd be gone for 6 months, 9 months, and you wouldn't know where he was. And then all of a sudden he'd pop up again, back full of life, and let you know where he'd been and what he'd been doing. And just every time you saw him, he always had a different car. Like, he was always in a different vehicle. And I remember Dad telling the story about the Flash GTHO that he bought in 1971 Ford Falcon. And he lit it up at the Clubrooms pub one night, as you head out on the old road, back how the road used to go. And it was just screaming in the middle, and then all of a sudden it gripped on the tarmac, flew straight across the road into the ditch on the other side, nose down like this. Foxy gets out, leaves the car there, they picked it up the next day. You wouldn't do that now, it's worth about $90, but he was always, and he just always had a laugh and always had a smile on his face. Some of Robbie's dates are a little bit wrong with his rugby stuff, but I'll let him off. He is getting a little bit old, but I was one of the players when he was the manager of the secondary schools team. 22 dozen we put on that bus. 22 players with a dozen each. And another time, rugby times, I seen Keith at the I think it was at the pub one night. I was about 19, I think, at the time, and he said, "What are you doing on Wednesday?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." He said, "Go down to the Thames Rugby Club, I'll bring Grant down." And I went, "Grant Fox?" He goes, yeah, I sent him to the family reunion a couple of weeks ago. I was going to come down and do some kicking lessons." I said, "You full of shit, Foxy, Jesus Christ, that's not going to happen." I said, "How many people is he coming down for?" "Oh, it's about 3. I said, "You've got Grant Fox coming down to help teach kicking for about 3 people." And he's like, he'd be here at 4 o'clock, Thames High School. So I'm here at 4 o'clock, and time goes by, and Foxy's standing there, and it's about 4:15, nothing's happening. I said, "Foxy, are you sure that you're related here? What's going on? Like, seriously?" "No, I rang him, he said he's coming. Anyway, about 4:30, Grant turns up. There's three of us there. I mean, the whole of the valley should have been here, but there's only 3 of us. And he takes us through a kicking lesson for about an hour, and I couldn't believe it that it turned up and that Foxy had organised it. Also when we were kids, I'm a non-smoker, pretty much like Dad was. Dad used to pilfer them off everybody, but I am a non-smoker, and I can honestly say that's because of Keith. Because one day down the cow shed, him and Dad were fixing some shit up down here, and they were always welding and cutting stuff up and fixing stuff. And I think I was about 12 years of age, and they stopped for smoking about 3 in the afternoon, I think it was. And I said, "Oh, can I have one of them?" And they look at each other and, yeah, right, enough, you can have one. So I light one up, and Foxy said, "Make sure you take some nice big puffs." Sucking it out of there, about 3/4 of the way through this first smoke, and I'm starting to go, "Oh, Jesus Christ, I feel too flashy here." Foxy's like, "You finished that one? Here, another one." And he chucks another one, lights another one. I'm like, "Oh, I don't feel too good here." Get through the second one. Yeah, have this one. This will be your last one. Yeah, sure was right. That was my last one because I blew my guts out. Worked off home, going, Dan and Foxy were just pissing themselves laughing in the room, and I was just like, "Oh, God, I don't know how those guys smoke that shit." It's like, God, it's terrible. Yeah, anyway, that's just a couple of stories. Foxy, after when Dad passed away, he always used to call in at home. He always used to see him once a month, he'd call in. That's just the topic of who he was. He'd just make sure you're doing all right and have a laugh with you and sit down and have a cup of tea and Yeah, so I'll never forget him. Thanks.
Afternoon, everybody. My name's Bevan. I'm Keith's younger brother. I'm going to put him in a situation where he used to be a criminal. Most people will know. And when David was talking about his GTO and all the fast cars he had, he was a bit of a menace on the road. Anyway, he used to get into the stripe and Thames and he belt this thing over the Coca-Cola Road, through Ngatea, back through Waihi, back in Thames before the cops even realised he'd gone. Then it's probably a few years later, mother gets pulled up. And when she got in, the cop looked at his licence. Oh, you're the mother of those boys. So she was the last one to actually meet the police. Drove to the behaved himself after that.
Yeah, I don't ever had a ticket. She said, realised who I was, it didn't. You waved it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for coming today. Well attended. Very much thank you, Robbie, for your words. Cliff, especially. It's a hell of a thing to put together. Michelle and I spent a little bit of time, but Michelle needs a gold medal for this job. She made an amazing job. Got all this stuff together in a short time. And it's not a short time. 2 weeks is not long to try and fix someone's life. Put that together. But yeah, we'll all miss Bro. He's been a good bucket. Good brother. But we've had good times after service and reflect on his life. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to come and speak?
Couple of things. Keith and I, well, we knew each other for a long time. We let me drive that Falcon. It was faster with a trailer on or a caravan. We managed to do 100 mile an hour on that thing with a caravan on behind. Caravan had nowhere to go because I had to keep up. He was at our wedding. He cancelled our motel that we were going to go to after the service. We had to get out of that somehow. So I think the best story I've got for him was in London. Another mate and I, we all lived at 48, as Moses said. And another mate and I, we had found some iron gates. We had bed ends from these steel gates. We had road cones. We had street names all around the wall in our room. Anyway, Foxy comes back and he says, one day he says, the police are on their way around here tonight to catch you boys for stealing all this stuff. And we said, no police are going to come around here. No, we'll be right. And then got the better of us as the day progressed. He says, the police are coming around. They're going to be here tonight. They're going to sort you fellas out. So Charlie and I, we took all the gates back, we put all the signs back, we put the road cones back. There was a knock on the door about 8 o'clock, and this guy, I opened the door, and this policeman filled the doorway. Huge man, right? And I'm almost begging, had the arms out, cuff me and get me out of here. And he says, where's Keith Fox? He had to show me his licence. I caught him in the parking lot. But he was sitting out there.
Thanks for those who have shared so far. This time is drawing to a close. I wonder if there's anyone else that would like to come. thanks everyone. Following this time together, the family would love if you would gather with them around refreshments, a chance for them to acknowledge as many of you as they can, but also just a small way of them being able to say thank you for being a support to them today. What we're going to do now is take some time and watch that screen shortly once someone sets it up, and enjoy some memories by way of photos and music, and then we will commit Keith's ashes.
I just don't want to get up and making me lunch anymore. Change your oil.
lay smoking in his hand. She said, Father, please forgive me. I can't make it without my man. And she knew the gun was empty, and she knew she couldn't win. But her final prayer was answered when the rifles fired again. There were 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the battle stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne. And 7 Spanish angels took another angel home.
There were 7 Spanish angels at the altar of the sun. They were praying for the lovers in the valley of the gun. When the battle stopped and the smoke cleared, there was thunder from the throne. 7 Spanish angels took another angel home. All right, y'all, help me now.
There were 7 Spanish angels
At the
altar of the sun.
Oh, I believe
They were praying for the lovers
that it was.
in the valley of the gun.
Well,
The battle stopped and the smoke cleared.
there was thunder.
On the throne.
Oh, yeah.
7 Spanish angels took another angel home.
This is our fresh fish that we caught today. What was the fish called? Snapper and snapper. And row as well. We've got Keith over there enjoying the row. Hamilton's still fishing out the back.
Right, Foxy.
Trying to get more, trying to catch more bait. Aaron, the skipper. Leighton. And we're at Great Barrier Island. It's been a beautiful day of swimming and fishing. Leighton, get off, please. You're at the end of the day now, obviously.